Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
Don't get
Hey, look, Jesse, I feel you because I hate Sandals sleeve because I'm the one that like puts together a lot of our marketing materials, and man, like I'll like put all the characters kind of in line or whatever, kind of like whatever, and it's always that damn sleeve
you
that makes me
cover
that I can't
everybody's
put
name.
somebody to it. I cannot put somebody next to Sando unless they're bigger because his daggone sleeve is a character. His sleeve is a
Yeah.
character.
Hey guys, this is Saturday FM Making Manga Podcast, and we're going to be talking about our upcoming fighting game, Saturday AM Battle Manga wish list. If you haven't already, I am Adunzio Google White Manga, aka well, I guess those are my only names for now. Yeah, there are
You
other
gotta get
names we
more.
can go,
You gotta get
but
more. You gotta get more.
yeah, no. For now, just this is for this show. Those are the only two they need. We have a lot of information. Don't want to bombard you guys, but the point is, creator of Apple Black, Corporate Serialized Saturday AM, where I'm also co-founder, and these are my co-hosts today with a special guest. But we'll get to that. You guys can just introduce yourself.
I'm Raymond Brown, creator of Bullet Eater, co-founder of Saturday AM. Glad to be here, especially tonight because I'm excited.
Yeah, and my name is Jay Odin. I am the creator of Hammer, as well as also the artist on the Rick and Morty mangas, Volume 1 and 2. And I'm also very excited. This is gonna be a blast.
And then who's this last person? Who's this last person?
Yeah, so it's great to be here, guys. Jesse Shegonshia. I go by Vankill usually in online spaces. I'm like in the fighting game community. That's kind of what people know me as, if they know of me, because I'm not that well known. But I'm the game director. I would say like lead producer on the upcoming fighting game, Saturday AM Battle Manga. It's great to be here.
Nice. We're excited to have you, and we have a laundry list of questions before we get into that. First off, I'd just like to get a general vibes from everybody as to how they feel about the reception of the game, the trailer, all that good stuff. What y'all thinking?
I'm excited. I'm very happy and glad that so many people have been giving us our flowers.
Raymond, you were saying something?
Yeah, no, same. I mean, it's pretty. It's wild to see people like because I mean I'm not super deep into the fighting game community, but I know enough to be dangerous or whatever. But it's cool to see some of these people that you see that are like commentators for like fighting game events and stuff like that, like Evo and all that, and they're actually like talking about our stuff and giving us a shot. I do think it's pretty funny though that like we were talking about off camera that we even our haters are having trouble finding something on this one. Even our haters are kind of like, well, it's cool, but I still don't like it. You know what I mean? Like, so even our haters are kind of, finding things about, having a hard time denying us this moment, and it's so cool. Jesse, you guys did an amazing job, man, and I'm excited about seeing what we're gonna do more with it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
some
I really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, some of the posts I've seen on Twitter is like, they'll try and talk about like, oh, it's not, the whole thing about it not being manga or having issues with the name or this, that, and the third. But I think the people who really mess with it, which I think again it's like 95% of all of it, they really like it. The music, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Those who like music like the music, right?
Yeah,
You see a comment here and there where they're like, what is this? But those who like the music really like it as well. So, we have a lot of questions to break down. But again, it's cool to see the fighting game community so far they're on board, right? Hopefully, we knock it out the park and stick the landing so they don't turn on us. But for the most part, I think they've been welcoming, like you said, the commentators, the players, the more fighting game influencer types. Like everybody, it's kind of on everybody's radar without us having to do much. So, Jesse, you can go in.
Yeah, it's been a little surreal. Obviously we have our other project, Netcode Warriors. It's also a fighting game that kind of in a different kind of vein, a different subgenre of fighting games that we're trying to get off the ground too. But the just like astounding, response to the trailer, it being shared everywhere, kind of the way people are talking about it. Obviously there's a lot of tag fighters that are coming out, just like around the same time ish. And I think if you talk to any of the actual developers, they'll all say it's like a coincidence, and it is, right? Because it's not like we're talking to each other behind closed doors. But people are excited about it. There's a tag fighter, and it's like this crossover thing between all the Saturday AM properties and things like that. Obviously we wear, it's like some of our inspirations we wear pretty proudly on our sleeve in regards to some of the visuals and some of the animations and kind of the style, but then also trying to take things in our own kind of unique direction and perspective in regards to some of the stylization of some things. I know people have taken well to like the onomatopoeias we're including and some like the visual aspects of it. And then also some of the game design stuff that obviously wasn't very evident in the trailer, but will kind of come up more the further we get into development, the more we kind of publicly talk about it. But yeah, we're doing some very interesting things from a game design perspective to kind of make it stand out a bit. We're really excited to like kind of show people more about what's going on with the game. And even though I'm leading the effort, to be honest, all credit goes to the people working on the animators and the programmers and everything. Like I really have to shout out my team because we wouldn't really be even in the position that we are in without them.
Yeah, they've done peak fiction.
Right.
Done a great job.
And we were just on a call with your team a couple nights ago, and what stood out to me, obviously they're all talented, clearly, but the it factor, I believe, is just their passion for it, man. Like, man, I mean, God, what we burned up 2 1 hour.
It felt like 15 minutes, but we were there for like 2 hours.
Yeah, we could have went longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could have went longer. Like if not for the Google Meet timer like running over, it felt like we could have been there easily for another hour. So something I really appreciate is, for me, like I've been a Saturday AM fan since like I want to say like at least 2016, 2017, if not earlier. Like I have like the original Apple Black Book, right? The kind of longer, skinnier version. I don't know what you guys call that one. For the Rockport edition,
we call it the OG.
Yeah, the OG, the OG version. So I have both of the first 2 volumes of that. So I've been following for a really long time because my actual background is when I was younger, when I was a kid, I really wanted to do manga, and so following White on YouTube and stuff, I'd like watch some of the tutorials and get into drawing, fall in and out of drawing here and there, and kind of ended up in this game development space. And I was really thinking about like how do we elevate Sun Studios as a company, as a brand, and kind of give us some recognition. And then, I was like, what? I literally just picked up one of the books. I think I just gotten like a whole collection of like the newer, smaller, like the tanks, the tankobons. And I was like, nah, this something special here. So that's really when I decided to like, reach out and see like what kind of collaboration we could kind of come up with. And that's how we ended up here. And it's crazy because, visually, a lot of your series have like kind of a different visual style to them, right? And so trying to kind of marry that in one screen in a way that looks cohesive has been a bit of a challenge. We're all aware kind of that process because I think some of the predecessors, the fighting game space specifically that we're looking up to, that we're taking inspiration from, or that have done this have kind of like just unified like one cohesive visual style because that's a bit easier to do. But I think to us, it was, important that like the vision of each artist is like captured as much, obviously within certain constraints. Obviously some things can't be exactly one-to-one, but within the constraints of what we're dealing with can be translated one-to-one. I'm super excited for what you guys are going to see because guys haven't even seen everything in regards to what we're doing with that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Nice. Kind of like Smash, right?
Yeah.
Smash kind of does that. Not that I'm a huge player of Smash, but like you were talking about, you almost went into like comics. Where did the gaming U-turn or switch happen?
I'd say like when I was in college, I really got into, funny enough, competitive Smash Brothers, right? With a group of friends of mine, and from there I got into Street Fighter, and then from Street Fighter I got into like more the competitive fighting game stuff. And I think initially I wanted to like run an esports organization, and that's something I still do with some of my friends on the side. We may host events from time to time. But I remember in 2019 or so, I was like, trying to learn game development just for fun or whatever. And then it kind of just events just kept spiraling until I ended up in the position of, okay, now I'm the CEO of a studio and we're trying to make these games and get them off the ground. My love for manga and for writing and storytelling has never really left me. And, so video games are they're like interactive, but you're still, writing, right? There's still like story and characters and worlds that you're building in a way that's like very different from any other medium that you're dealing with, because the feedback of the medium is like so important, right? When you're watching a movie, it's a very like, the director has like this vision, he wanted you to experience it, and that's like, if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, right? But I think when you're making like a video game, it's almost more, you have to consider more aspects of like the product being like, how do consumers interact with it? Like, what's the game feel like? What's the experience like? How much time are they going to spend with it? Because time is also like a thing that varies from person to person in regards to how much time they can commit to it, how much time they're going to spend with it, whatever, right? So those kinds of things kind of create differences in regards to design and storytelling and narrative design and things like that, that are, things that excite me now in the process of doing what we do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'll actually add to that too. I mean, we can, I'm always about our teacher moments because this is the Making Manga podcast. So, like, the story is awesome, Jesse, because a lot of our viewers are aspiring manga artists. Like you were back in college, and sometimes people may miss the forest for the trees. They're so fixated on thinking that the only way that I can create content is by drawing it. Or making manga or whatever, where you eventually had that pivot. Well, you know what? Let me mess a little bit with game development. Let me mess a little bit with this, and then you found a niche that I would imagine you're a better developer than you are probably artist or whatever. Probably safe to say. But
yeah, I definitely say.
But I guess the lesson to take away from it is that be open minded. Try different things. Don't get so locked in that you got to be the next Oda. You know what I mean? Just
I 100%
try new things.
Yeah, I think also the power of IP is something I'd advise any like creators on. Like something, if you're creating something like a story or world, like recognize the power of having like an intellectual property that you put a lot of like love, care, and effort into. Because even our other game, right, Netcode Warriors that we're working on, like if it's successful, like I'd like to do a manga for that, right? Maybe not me myself doing the art for it, but at least directing, because creating the story and stuff, I could direct an artist or in a licensed kind of relationship. It's like, hey, this kind of the manga version of this. I mean, it happens for video games all the time where they get a manga adaptation or whatever. Actually, when I was a kid, funny enough, my first like manga that I owned, my parents bought for me was the Kingdom Hearts 2 manga. So it's actually funny that like I started with like a video game like manga adaptation. Then that got me into wanting to make manga. Then like now I'm in video games, and in the future I might be back into wanting to do something manga related. So it's funny how life is kind of cyclical in that way. But yeah,
it's kind of like you have. It doesn't. The goal hasn't necessarily changed, right? It's just how you get there now. There's a flexibility to that. Like sometimes, even with the game, right? There are some people, and again, very few, because even these people, they view it positively, but like they'll have like questions about, you guys are doing the video game, you don't even have an anime. It's like that doesn't mean an anime can happen. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one comes first. He's like, see Street Fighter, now the movie is coming out. Some of the other movies so, but they happened, right?
Right.
And so everybody, how you get there, it doesn't have to be one-to-one with everybody else's path. You kind of have to be open and flexible to form your
Yeah. Also, I'd say like, anime is a very like difficult enterprise to get into, and it's so layered, and there's so many more like indie anime is not really a thing, but indie video games are, right? So there's there's kind of that ease of access a little bit in regards to like we can just make a video game together, whereas anime, like you need that relationship with Japan and like that's a whole nother layer or whatever. And also like obviously, the game comes out as very successful. That helps in regards to the popularity of the IP, which then gives the people who want to make anime for it, more of a kind of juxtaposition. More reasons to do it, basically.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I really wanted to do it too, at that time. So
yeah, I'm glad you reached out, because I think in my head, because I think at first I don't know how I know you emailed me.
No, so I sent you a DM on like Instagram, I think initially, and I was like, "Hey, there's like an interest here." And you were like, "Oh yeah, sure. Like you can just send an email."
Here. You send me an email, right?
Yeah. I was like, send you an email, and I had a pitch deck I made, kind of like illustrating the concept or whatever, what I was thinking in my mind at the time. Yeah. I sent it to you, and then things kind of started rolling from there.
Yeah, it's lucky, because it could have easily been like, man, another person trying to pitch me something.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been.
It could have been. It could have been one of those. I get those emails and they don't. Those messages and they don't go anywhere. But I think maybe I don't know what it was. Maybe I saw the Nigerian name. Maybe I saw the Nigerian name. I was like, nah, you got to take this guy seriously. But yeah, that's funny. So see all the good that came from that. Jay, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to White earlier when we got on the call, and I was trying to think of some things to ask you, and one of them that came to my mind was like, what was the point? Like, I know you said that you were into manga and you were like, yeah, let me do this, but like, what was like the video game that you played that you were like, you know what, this is what I can do. I can, that. I mean, maybe it's something that you look up to that made you think, you know what, if I can just replicate this in my own way. Like, what was that for you?
Oh yeah, I definitely say it was probably Dragon Ball Fighters, right? So I played a lot of fighting games like leading up to, obviously like trying to make our own. But the one that I spent the most amount of time in was Dragon Ball Fighters. It was announced in June-ish of 2017. I was playing fighting games pretty heavily at that time, but there was nothing that made me feel like the way the game made me feel. Now, obviously, you guys don't play fighting games competitively, so it's kind of hard to convey like the emotion of it, but it felt like I heard somebody say this once, like playing the Dragon Ball fighting game, because like takes so much skill to play at a high level, and I wasn't like super good at it, but taking like that skill, like time to learn and practice, it felt like an anime, but in real life. Like it felt like Dragon Ball. It felt like like the tournament arcs that are part of the story, right? The Cell games, the World Tournament arcs, all that stuff. Like that literally translates into real life of like this player, Sonic Fox versus this player, and these storylines. Like it mixes and blends together, right? Like the players talk trash in real life, just like Vegeta would talk trash to Goku and stuff like that. So that kind of vibe, it created like a layer of like, something that's very common in fighting is people have something called a main, which is like basically the primary character that you play. Obviously, you'll switch whatever depending on if you really like the character. But for a lot of people, fighting games, it's about the visuals, right? And the visuals being like the first time I see a character do cool combos, like is that something like I think looks cool? If I think it looks cool, then it's like, okay, let me learn how to play the character. You're playing the character, you're adapting to the play style, you're figuring out how to express yourself. Because that's another thing, right? Fighting games are like, there's like an expressive element to playing them, like where you're making decisions based on how you think, how you process information. And there's that nature of it, that like symbiotic relationship creates something that like, not like the flow state thing. I think like fighting games are some of like the most flow state conducive video games you could play. Like when you really get into them, because like you're making decisions faster than your brain is like processing things, but it's because you've conditioned yourself to do something over and over and over again in training mode or whatever. So by the time you're like in an actual match, adrenaline is running, you're scared, you're on a stage, people are looking at you, whatever, all that stuff just goes. And it's like flow state happens. You're not thinking about throwing out this punch, doing this kick. You're just thinking like, okay, I'm in neutral, I need to adapt to my opponent. I see an opening, and like for literally like 5 frames, which is 5/60th of a second or whatever, you make that decision. And that's, for and now at the level that fighting games are at, that's the difference between $1 million and nothing, right?
I can relate to like
for some events, yeah, they're that high.
Damn.
For some events, it could be like it could be up to $1 million, yeah.
All right, man.
It's not super common, particularly in fighting games, but some events have it.
I mean, like, shoot, if it's $1 million, if there's one with $1 million, then there's probably a couple with like 100K or something like that.
No, those definitely exist. So like the 250,000, 100,000, like World Cup thing. Capcom does like a Capcom Cup every year. I think the next one's coming up in like a month or so. So yeah, they do it once a year, and the winner gets 250,000.
Raymond, you're in the wrong business, bro.
Hey, I was just about to say, man, I'm about to shut this whole like comic stuff down. Taking real quick.
Raymond is like the best. He's the best player. He's the best player on the in Saturday. He's the best fighting game person.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's the most.
I probably can't mess with Jesse. Look, I ain't gonna mess with Jesse for his money. But I,
look, if we play, you better win. If I win one round, you're in trouble. If I win the game, you're in trouble.
Yeah. We don't have to worry about that happening though. Really.
What would you say is like the barrier of entry, because obviously we're talking about very competitive stuff, right? And there's still a lot of people that play games that's like, they're
Very
just very,
casual.
very casual, and those
Yeah,
games are
yeah.
like ridiculously popular, like a 2 million wish list or something like that. So I'm like, what is, I know the game is motion inputs, and so can you kind of talk to the audience about motion inputs and whether the game will have it, which I know it will, but that versus, I believe, modern controls, and if there would be like an option to switch, like what is that thing? Is there like a middle ground that's thought about when it comes to the type of player that's going to
Yeah,
come
yeah. So
into?
I do think there are like a couple of games that have found like a really good medium between like having complex like motions and then having like more simplified controls. I think we're like trying to kind of find that medium as well. I think for us, obviously, motion controls are important because the tactile nature of doing them, I think, is like it's not required to enjoy fighting games, but I do think that there's something there that is like when they're not there, as a fighting game player, you feel that dissonance, you feel that thing missing. Some games have like you can do the motion input. If you do the motion, the move is slightly better than if you do like the version with just a button. So that's also a consideration that we're making internally as well. Obviously, I'm not going to confirm or deny anything at this point. We're still like in the design phases for that specific decision. But
Yeah.
yeah, we do want to make sure that people who are just kind of playing fighting games casually do have options in regards to that. But I think we're making certain considerations too, just generally. Some motions are significantly easier to do than others. So I'd say like a lot of the very complex motions we're just not going to have. Right? Or motions that casual players can consider more complex. So there's a motion called the Dragon Punch motion, which looks like a Z, where you like move the controller forward, then down to bottom, then to the right corner.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you can do it with practice for a lot of people, but it's something that like for casual players, they're like, this is taking too much work.
Yeah.
It's not happening. So we're probably just not going to have that, and we'll just do quarter circles, which is like similar to what Dragon Ball Fighters does, where they just have quarter circle moves. But yeah, so I think it's important for players to feel like if they think like I want to do this thing, they should be able to do it, right?
I get
Where that like disconnect of like you tried to do something and the game wasn't responding to your to you, that's a really bad feeling that we kind of want to avoid for people.
There's a kind of there's like a statement that I heard one time before. I might misquote it, but like it's the concept that like when people hop on a game like this, they want to be able to do cool stuff easily, like especially casual people, or like you imagine you imagine maybe a 7-year-old, they like the characters and they won't jump on there. How true is that? Where like, well, how much is that in consideration as far as like, okay, I don't know nothing about fighting games, but can I still have fun with this? Can I still do cool stuff?
Yeah. So I think it's like the important consideration there, in my opinion, is that like if you're just mashing buttons or whatever, you don't know what you're doing, just pressing as many buttons as you can as fast as you can, relatively cool stuff should still be happening. But that if you take the time to learn the game and master it, then you'll be better than somebody who's just mashing the buttons. So that's kind of the kind of distinction we want to make internally from a design perspective. Because there are some, more casual fighting games, like very, very casual, where they specifically don't want to make that distinction. Like they just want everybody to be on a kind of equal playing field. It doesn't matter if you play this game all the time or not. You can just press one button to do all the combos, and that's not really what we're about internally as a studio.
Yeah.
Like no hate to the studios that do that, because obviously there's an audience that likes that stuff, and that's kind of what they want. But for us, I think that depth is really what excites us about designing video games in the first place.
Yeah. What would you say? Two things, right? What is the, I guess, regarding the whole combo stuff? Because I've heard someone talk about, how many buttons or something like that. And I knew the answer was 6 because I saw something on Reddit. But like, what does that 6-button thing mean? And then also, what studios do you look up to in that sense?
So I would say definitely that like Okay, let me explain the button thing. So yeah, there's gonna be 6 buttons, right? The reason it's 6 is because it's a tag fighter. You need buttons specifically for like dealing with assist stuff. Otherwise, you could make it a 4 button game, hypothetically speaking. But the reason it's not more than 6 is because generally, and I think we found, especially in the last couple of years in conversation wise, that people generally feel like once there's more than 6 buttons, there's something called the mental stack, which is like how many things you need to keep track of at the same time. It becomes a little too burdensome, or can become too burdensome. Also, some players are still using arcade sticks, right? And some arcade sticks only have 6 buttons because that's just how it's always been from back in the day. And so we want to make sure that the people that have those sticks, as long as your console or your computer, whatever supports it, they should still be able to play the game fully without like, oh, like I'm missing buttons. I need to go buy a new controller or whatever. That's kind of the situation there with how many buttons. In regards to people we look up to, I definitely think like the way Arc System Works is designed, their controls generally. I think there's a game called Grand Blue that really, like I was kind of referencing earlier, regards to having like a good like medium between like having a button that just does all the special moves for you, and then having like you can still do the motions or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm not saying like that's the exact direction we're going to lean into, but things like that are things we consider in regards to, like how we design and things like that.
That's probably why I'm sure you've seen a lot of the DBFZ comparisons online and stuff like that. People talking about there's just a mod of the game and yada yada yada, and I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you, but it's an inspiration, and I think I've not played that game. But I'm guessing with the amount of people who brought up that Guilty Gear, and am I missing one more game that gets compared to? Probably one other one. Like there's been like 3 that really get mentioned a lot, and so I'm guessing those are legit influences as well, because you guys are fighting game aficionados.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a handful of games that inspire. They are mostly in the anime, so there's like different subcategories of fighting games, right? So you have like your super traditional like 2D fighters. So those like your Street Fighters, maybe your Mortal Kombat's, things like that, where they're kind of more grounded and a little slower. Then you have like your 3D fighting games, that's like Tekken, things like that. You have like your Arena Fighters, like your Naruto Storm and like Netcode Warriors, what we're trying to do. And then you have this like subcategory we're in now that we're working on, this called an anime fighter generally, or a tag fighter, And so the anime fighters generally tend to be a little faster. The air movement tends to be a bit more free. You can dash in the air. Like a Street Fighter, you can't dash in the air, right? Like when you jumping is like a very high commitment action because you can't. It's been a while since I touched Street Fighter 6, but I'm pretty sure you can't block in the air, which means that if I jump and I see you jump, I can punish your jump, and that obviously heavily affects like how the game is played, and then and things like that. And then the anime games tend to not have that like rigidity in there. They tend to have more free kind of flowing combat and things like that. So yeah, Dragon Ball Fighters is decent enough inspiration. I would say Guilty Gear, particularly like. So the latest big game is Strive. I'd say more Exert than anything, which is like the previous one. Blaze Blue is a game I played a lot growing up on my PSP I had as a kid. And then
PSP.
There's a couple games by some studios, a studio called French Bread. There's Melty Blood and Under Night that are also inspirations in their own way.
That's cool. Would the game have like I know it's a 2v tag fighter. Is there a 1v1 option?
It's not planned right now, and I think like because of like the kind of unique things we're designing around the tag system, it wouldn't really make sense to try and like put a lot of effort into that. I think people will really enjoy what we design in regards to the 2v2. Maybe there might be some story mode things or things like that may just be like a 1v1 fight for whatever reason. But generally speaking, it would be like a 2v2 game. Like that's the kind of intended design for everything.
So Jesse, I gotta say, man, since working with you, man, I learned. I mean, I've been a fighting game fan for a long time, and like you taught me some things, like kind of like behind the curtain type stuff, where it's like, what? So I wanted to ask you, like, what are some things that are like some misconceptions about like making video games, like like because we have a lot here with making manga, as far as like people thinking that making manga is pretty straightforward and easy, whereas there's a lot of things in there if you don't know what you're getting into, it can hang you up. What would you say on the video game side that looks like? What are some misconceptions or some things that if somebody wanted to kind of pivot towards video game development, they should look out for?
Yeah, I think it's like I think this exists in every medium of entertainment you interact with. But I feel like because video games are so interactive as a thing, like you run into a lot of like, oh, why don't they just, you know what I'm talking about? Like why don't they just do
Yes.
this? Why don't they just do that? And then it's like, well, if we do like, video games are like one of those mediums where you can have this great idea in your head and then you make it exactly how you were envisioning, like literally down to a T. You're like, oh, this actually isn't that fun, right? So like that's like a consideration, like when you're designing things, like you need to figure out, like, just because something looks good to you on paper doesn't mean it's gonna play good when you're actually like the game. There's something called the game loop, which is basically like the loop that you're trying to get the player to like engage with over and over and over again. Like that's fun and rewarding. So I'd say that's kind of a big misconception, that people think that you can just do whatever. And then another misconception, this one's a little bit more technical, but as regards to like how 3D game development works, right? So generally speaking, for characters, right? Obviously you need like a concept, you need like art to denote like what the model should look like, and then the model is like, it's almost like real, if that makes sense, where once you make it, you can't, like, if it looks like, oh, you're like, oh, well, from this angle, I just didn't like the way this thing looks. Like, well, that it's a physical object in space. Like,
they occupy space now. You can't.
Yeah. So like, if I like turn my head sideways, you're like, well, actually, I feel like I don't like the way your nose curves from. I can't just be like, well, let me just, like right. That's just not how that works. And so there's like kind of similarities there that occur. And obviously there's ways to break those rules. I'd say it's a rule, but just like anything, if you're good enough at something, you can break rules in an artistic way. So that's something we do internally, but it's also hard to do that, right? So let's say, for instance, there's like a cinematic or whatever, where the camera is like in this position. So something we do internally, I was just saying, we break the thing is like, so you have like the model, which is like the, occupies a 3D space. But then when we animate the model, we have to create something called a skeleton for the model. So think of it like a puppeteer, when they have like the strings and stuff, and you have to control each part of the body individually. So there's a skeleton that's made, and then the skeleton is something that they do a process called weight painting, which determines how much a bone affects the mesh, which is like the actual model. And so that, there's like automated processes to make that as like, realistic as possible. But when you're dealing with anime, hand-drawn anime has a lot of imperfections. Not intentionally so, but it's almost like that's just the style at this point. Anime is a 50, 60-year-old industry. So, anime has a very particular look to it. Like, when it doesn't look like anime, if it looks too, you call it like, if it looks too 3D, it looks weird, it looks wrong. And you're like, oh, it looks too, like, in your mind, you're so used to seeing hand-drawn animation, like, oh, it looks weird. But it looks perfect, right? The computer's making it perfect because the computer can't do the imperfections by itself. So you need to break the thing to put the imperfections back in that would exist if somebody were to draw it by hand. Yeah. And so let's say, for instance, there's a shot where you're seeing the character from the side or whatever. You're like, well, it's a good shot, but like, can we get that shot from the front? It's like, well, you can, but it's going to be like double, triple the work, because we made that shot just to look good from this exact angle. Camera, there's a perfect example I like to bring from Dragon Ball FighterZ, where when Gohan does his big level 3 super, right? There's like a shot where the camera spins around his body. You see his hand, and like it zooms on his hand as he's like about to charge like the one-handed Kamehameha. If you see, there's a YouTube video where it plays that cinematic, but without the camera. Like the camera's just in a static position, and you see it. And what they do is they actually like make his hand like 8 times larger, because if you just actually move the camera in that way, it wouldn't look like it looks in the end. It wouldn't have that effect of like accenting the action and making it dynamic, and all that stuff goes, right? Because you're dealing with the realities of 3D space. And so something that Arc System Works pioneered was that idea of like break the 3D. Like, if it kill anything 3D. If it looks 3D, we don't want it, all right? Obviously, other studios have kind of adopted this style as well. I think famously Tango Gameworks, who did Hi-Fi Rush, they kind of have like a similar kind of philosophy in regards to their visuals, where it's like trying to do more of a hand-drawn look with stepped animation, which the Spider-Verse movie did as well, right? So Spider-Verse is a big pioneer in film in regards to doing like not smoothly interpolated animation, where you're intentionally having like frames, like a lower frame rate for stylization purposes, to make it look more like it was drawn by hand.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Some of those I actually just caught just learned about the hi-fi today. I saw like a review of it. Was just curious because people. The thing about the game is the way the game is set up. We can do a lot of cool stuff DLC wise. So people in the comments are like, "Oh man, I love to see. This blow my mind if we see this in there, and see that in there."
Yeah, I've seen everything under the sun in regards to requests for specific characters, which from IPs, which I won't mention at this time, but it's been interesting to see what people have said in regards to like, can we get this character from this thing? And I'm like, okay. All right.
Yeah,
I see what people.
Yeah, so today somebody said hi-fi rush. I was like, what's that? And then I looked it up. So that makes sense. There've been some that again we won't go through here that have been mentioned over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So it's good information to generally have. Jay, you seen any weird stuff?
I actually, when you were mentioning about Gohan and his hand getting really, really big, I saw something a while ago that was reminiscent of what you were saying, where it was Sonic and he was like running, and they had to like when they pulled back the camera and you didn't actually see the like angles and stuff, like they made him super skinny because he was like moving really fast, or something in this regard. And I remember thinking, wow, like I didn't know that. Like that's what you would do. So like I find it very interesting that you talk about that, and I guess I'm wondering if like you have to do that as well for like some of our characters, because I would assume so.
Definitely 100%. I feel like you know the answer. I feel like you know the answer about which character we have to do it with.
I wonder which one.
Who was the most difficult character to deal with?
For sure. I mean, of the ones we revealed so far, definitely Stud, because Jay's manga, right, it just stylistically is so different from everybody else's. It's like the most departed visually from everybody else's. And it's the most like, we call it like rubber hose, which is like the animation style from like the 30s. It's like kind of Mickey Mouse, like where physics don't really matter. Like, Mickey Mouse's arm can be literally like a U shape or whatever. Like it doesn't, all that stuff doesn't matter. And obviously Jay's style is kind of actually, because I have all the Hammer books, right? His style's kind of changed like slightly over each volume, right? So maybe it was like a little bit more cartoony in the original, but it's kind of become more static as things gone on, and like a more, the poses are slightly different, right? So like that kind of adaptation, especially internally, everybody has a different view of like what we should do, right? Like some of the animators are like, oh no, like the rubber hose thing, like I want to go full 100% in that direction or whatever. Like I want it to be like the wackiest thing you've ever seen. I'm like, well, it still needs to be cool, right? Because like once you go, like if you go rubber hose like all the way, it loses its cool factor and just becomes goofy, right? So that's like a thing that like has to be considered. But then at the same time, there's also like a time consideration, because like trying to perfect like this specific frame of animation where his arm is gonna break in a specific way to like get that like U-shaped thing. I mean, you can kind of see it in the trailer. There's like a shot where he snaps his arm back in his intro where he has the hammer, and you can see like there's a little bit of that like rubber hosey kind of style, because obviously we want to reference it because that's kind of the visual kind of identity of it. But, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't difficulties in regards to it, for sure.
Well, I appreciate the perseverance. You guys are definitely doing a good job. I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah. Oh well. I know you guys.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Raymond.
No, I was going to ask just from an art standpoint. So, like, what are some advice you can give to artists looking to design their characters more to be primed for 3D? Because like sometimes when you draw comics, you just go straight into it. You just draw whatever looks cool. You don't care about what angles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What kind of advice could you give artists to make sure that when they're designing their characters, they're primed to be put in different mediums like video games?
Okay, so ironically, I would say that the less like, also this is very heavily dependent on like what style of video game you're going for. So if you're like a manga artist and you want something similar to what we're doing in regards to like you want like an anime style look, the less like hyper flowing fabrics, the better. So I would actually say like the second most difficult character after Stud was definitely Sano, because he has this super big sleeve that like needs to like obey the laws of physics, but also needs to flow in a way like like the I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Man of Steel, right? But there's like a scene where he comes out of like the cave or whatever wherever he's like talking to his dad, and his cape is like billowing in the way fabric does not move that way in any way, shape, or form. That's all hand animated, right? Mm-hmm. So that I would say that like if you're trying to design a character and you're like, oh, like I want it to be easy for someone to make a 3D model of the character, the less like hyper flowy stuff on the character, the easier it's gonna be for somebody to do that. Also like line work. So if you have a lot of like specific like lines on the character's body in whatever way, specific like black lines, like that denote like a scar or tattoo or whatever, depending on the fidelity of the assets you're dealing with, that can also be hard because if there's going to be lots of zoomed in shots, then it can look pixelated or whatever, and it kind of spoils the look that you're going for. I think that'd be my general advice. But yeah, the less flowing stuff you can have, the better. So if you're expecting to draw like a character that has like really thin strands of flowing hair with like a big cloak and thing, it's gonna be a nightmare for somebody to animate that. I can tell you 100% right now. Somebody's like, they might do it, but it's gonna be very difficult to do.
Basically,
yeah, exactly. Hey, look, Jesse, I feel you because I hate Sano's sleeve because like I'm the one that like puts together a lot of our marketing materials, and man, like I'll like put all the characters kind of in line or whatever, kind of like whatever, and it's always that damn sleeve that makes me that I can't put to it. I cannot put somebody next to Sano unless they're bigger because his daggone sleeve is a character. His sleeve is a character. So I feel you.
I will say that like just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not rewarding to like a outcome that you're happy with, right? So even though Sano's sleeve was very difficult to work with, very happy with the result because it looks, like it has that flow to it, right? It took a lot of work to get it, but we're very happy with the result, and it looks.
Yeah, I'm also assuming it'll also be easier if the character is symmetrical.
Yes,
a little bit. I don't think that one's as big of a deal. I know there was a thing where we were trying to figure out like the whole mirroring thing. So in fighting games or whatever, this is a good example of this. There's a character in Guilty Gear named Baiken, right? And Baiken is she's disabled. She's missing. She's an amputee. She's missing one of her arms, right? And I think it's her left arm. I can't remember which arm, but it's let's just say it's her left arm that's missing or whatever, right? When she jumps over to the other side, if she's player 2, it's her right arm that's missing. As a player, that's not something you're paying that much attention to, but realistically, like, especially with the Saturday AM books where like Cass's hand, like it's important that it's Sano's left hand that's his like magic hand. It's important that Sano's like left hand that's a robo hand. But the reality of 2D fighting games is just like this is just what it has to be because. And there's like lots of layers to why. Part of it, most of it actually has to do with like visual identity, cohesion, and speed in your eyes. Because like if Sano were to move to the other side and everything visually flips, your eye like it's basically a completely different character on the other side, and that's not the same. Like you're not playing a fighting game anymore. It's like my eyes are just like I don't get it. So that's something. 3D can do whatever. Obviously not whatever, but generally, because most 3D fighters are more, not most, but I would say the biggest one is Tekken. And Tekken is more limb-based, right? So Tekken doesn't really do like light, medium, heavy attacks. They have like left arm, left leg, right leg, right? So even when they flip to the other side, it's still like your left arm, it's still the left arm, and it's still like that jab is still with the exact same hand, even if that hand is now in the foreground where it was in the background when they're on the player 1 side. But the camera is moving so much in such a way that's for some reason not as disorienting when you're playing like in a fully 3D kind of environment. Because in Tekken, you can step into the foreground and background, and the camera will adjust that to that too. I'll say most of the credit to this goes to our lead developer, Rin, who you probably have seen on social media talk about the game, whatever. So she developed this Night Sky engine. It's like an add-on to Unreal that basically is like a fighting game engine. And, she's been working on it for a long time, like even before she started working for us. It's open source, which means anybody can use it, basically. And initially, we were creating a port because most of our team was like Unity kind of based. They're more familiar with Unity, so we're creating a port of the Night Sky engine for Unity. But we just kept running into like different issues with it, right? And at one point, it's like, well, the Unreal version is like significantly further ahead in development than the Unity version, so let's just migrate everything there. And I think actually like it's significantly better, like it looks significantly better now in Unreal than it did in Unity. Obviously, our other title that we're working on that you guys are aware of, Netcode Warriors, is still in Unity. But Netcode is like designed in a way where Unity is better for it right now. If sequels are Unreal, that's like a conversation for another time. But yeah, that's kind of like where we're sitting with it right now.
I know you can't go into too much detail about the voice actors. We had a big turnout for people looking to audition for voice actors.
Yeah. I'm sure people are excited to get an update on that front. So obviously, two of the characters are already cast. Ironic, cast. But so Sano does have his voice actor, which is Alejandro Saab, pretty well renowned. He's voiced a lot of very popular anime and video game characters. He's worked on everything from Genshin Impact to Digimon to he was the main character. I think it's Hell's Paradise. He's in Persona, and I don't think I can list like every anime. Like it would take me years to list like everything he's done, but he's done a lot of really big projects, so it was cool to get him on board for that. And then cast voice actor Neris Quinones, she has voiced like Mirko, My Hero, and a lot of other big prominent Kimberly in Street Fighter 6. So she does have like a little bit of fighting game experience in that department and whatever. So it was cool to get her on board for cast. In regards to everybody else, we did these like very public auditions. We're a little overwhelmed with the response in regards to how many submissions there were. I didn't know what I was expecting. I didn't expect 1,200 people to be super passionate about voicing these characters and being the first time these characters get voices. So that is exciting. And we did narrow it down. After listening to all of their, that's why I just took so much time listening to every single person's like reel and stuff. We narrowed it down to people we think that are the best fit for this specific, for this title. But we obviously still have that list on hand. So if there's future projects and there's people, like if there's roles for people that were like, oh, we like this person, but there's just not a character in the roster that they would be good for. Like, hey, we still have your name. We still have your name and email. So you might hear from us at some point in the future. But yeah, we narrowed it down to around 100 people or so, give or take. I don't remember the exact number. But yeah, so in the new year, we're planning on doing the auditions either like end of this month or start of next month. We're still trying to figure out the exact timeline for that. But yeah, we're gonna do the auditions. We might film them to kind of promote that process and kind of let people know what it's like to hire voice actors and like to do that kind of process and like what it's like auditioning and things like that. It'll be cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in regards to the languages, I think doing like text and stuff for language is not super difficult. I think because we do, but I think something to consider is that because we do have like a lot of text that's like that isn't just like a font, it's like somebody hand drew a word in English. So like all the onomatopoeias, for instance, are like English based, like SFX stuff. Like you need to redo that in every potential language that you're expecting to do it in. It depends on the thing, because like sometimes Steam can be very strict with those kind of regulations in regards to like all the text needs to be understood. It's not every single thing, but it can be a little strict about it. So it's just something we need to consider. Back in the day, like back in the early days of manga getting imported to the West, I know you guys just did that video on Matt's video on like back in the day they used to do that, but now people they want more of the pure, like just give me the text bubbles in English. I want everything else to be the original Japanese, which I think is cool. So I think if we do that, I think it'd be cool. I think we could have like, because we do have, a little tease, I guess, we do have like Japanese versions of some of the onomatopoeias that you guys saw in the trailer. So there's a chance that we can put those in there or whatever. So maybe we just have like English and Japanese versions for the onomatopoeia that you can switch in the menu, but then the rest of the text will be like whatever language is. In regards to Japanese voice acting, I don't think we're opposed to it internally. It's just like the Japanese voice acting industry, like the anime industry, is very hard to like break into, like getting the right contact to be like, okay, I need to hire like X voice actors, I do think like if we do the menus in like a stylized way, which we'll talk about more off call, but if we do the menus in a stylized way, that would definitely need to be like redone in whatever language, like if it's not just a font, right? So that's kind of things to consider as well. But I think generally, yeah, like we want to give as many people as we can access to the game. And yeah, the voice acting thing, I think I can confirm for now. English and the Japanese is we'll see. But I would like to. I think it'd be super cool to hear your characters in Japanese. Because like obviously dub, there's like this whole dub versus sub debate, which I don't really want to get to. But there's something special about like hearing your character voiced in Japanese as like a Westerner. You're just like, wow, that's interesting. Like,
meta. Like, what if we even did something meta? Like, like the characters like were like they start talking in Japanese, and like, oh my god, how am I talking in Japanese right now? You know what I mean? Like just to really like mess up, just to really like play into the common part. Not saying we do that, but I'm saying like that would be kind of funny if we just like leaned into it. Like what it makes me think of is like leaning into certain things. Like going back to what you were talking about with the mirroring. Like I thought it was funny as crap that like they leaned into Guile with the 2 United States tattoos on his arms.
Yeah,
where, like they just went ahead and made it a staple. I definitely
it looks very interesting. I like that they're going for kind of a campy, funny look because I think like trying to take itself very seriously, I don't think would not have worked for that IP because you literally have like a dude with a flat top. Guy, like if you look at like some of Guile's animations and like especially in the 3D era, no, like some of the 2D games where he has this comb that he brings with him and he's like making his flat top like intentionally wider by combing it out. Like that does like you're not doing like a gritty like noir Batman story where Guile walks out with his comb and it's like, all right, guys, I'm here to avenge my homeboy
like
Nash.
In the 90s, though, man. Like everything, like in the 90s, everything was gritty. Like hell, they even made a Mario's Brothers live action. Y'all remember that?
No.
And that thing was like it had John Leguizamo as Luigi. It had like Yoshi was a straight up like dinosaur from Jurassic Park, like a straight raptor, and like it was so steampunk. It was like. But as a kid, I was just excited that the Mario Brothers had a movie, so I was in it. I was good. Like
the 90s where everything had to be edgy, right? Like if you look at like especially comics at that time, like especially Western comics, like Jim Lee's X-Men, Rob Liefeld, who else? Todd McFarlane, like all their stuff is like the edgiest art you've ever seen.
Yeah,
the muscles have muscles.
Yes.
His tongue is like 80 feet long, and he's in a dark alley. And he's like the lethal protector. Like that was just the very 90s kind of era. Like, why does Cyclops have like 80 pockets on his belt? Like,
because that's the way you did it. And like that was the thing. Like we would draw like back in the day. Like you would see like everybody who made their own superhero comics would do the exact same thing. They would basically make them like Wolverine, but like black with pockets.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting kind of segue to when people make manga in like the Western world, right? When people in the Western world are trying to make manga, they feel like they have to do like Japanese setting, Japanese names, Japanese everything, right? Like, oh, like this is my manga idea. The main character's name is like Ryu Sawazaki. And he goes to a Japanese high school. He's eating like a rice cake in the morning or whatever. And then he gets, and obviously like there's nothing wrong with that. If that's actually the kind of story you're wanting to tell. But, generally like if you're from the West, that's not your lived experience. So maybe it's better to like, introduce like the things you're actually familiar with because it'll make the story more subconsciously. It'll make it more authentic because you won't do stuff that just doesn't make sense. If you're not actually Japanese, like there's a lot of stuff you'll be like, I've seen this in the anime, therefore like I know it's real. The same way I think a lot of times like some even Western things here that are made for children are considered corny. In Japan, some things that are in anime are considered like corny or whatever. Like I remember hearing this story about like some dudes that were like taking a Japanese class in college, right? And it was basically like they just watched a bunch of anime growing up, and so they wanted to take this Japanese class, and like they knew a little bit because they'd watched some anime or whatever, right? And so there's this lady in the class that's like actually Japanese, and she's like, these guys were horrible. Japanese was like the corniest, like it's like the most like imagine if you're trying to learn like you're taking like an English literature class, and some dude from like I don't know like. From some random place, like Poland comes in, his English is not great, and he learned English from like reading Shakespeare. And he's like, well, thou hast taken this course today, and I must beseech you that, like, you're just sitting there like, what are you talking about?
I've heard that it's kind of like the equivalent of somebody coming to the states, like to your point, and speaking like a straight supervillain, like an old school
Yeah. That's
what I mean?
perfect. That's perfect, actually.
Yeah. So it'd be the equivalent of that if you go over there talking anime. Because there's this one girl I follow on Instagram, and she does a comparison. She does like how you say something in Japanese as an anime character and how you would say it in real life. The anime character is always extra. It's always extra.
Yeah.
I'm kind of scared. I'm kind of scared of doing Japanese onomatopoeia only because, like, I always think about those stories where people would get kanji on their body and they think it's so cool, and it says
All
something
right,
like
it's
stupid
not. It's like some dumb thing. They're like, oh, like this says peace in Mandarin, and somebody reads Mandarin is like, that says snail. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine like every time like Sato or somebody does an uppercut, it says something like inappropriate? Yeah, I mean, not saying you would know your kanji, I would imagine, but like that would be crazy. That would be crazy.
Easy patch, yeah, easy patch. Yeah, there's a lot of passionate. You guys have a lot of fans. Spanish speaking territories, Brazil, Portuguese, a lot of Brazil. Like you're looking at the analytics and stuff for the trailers, the Steam page, like the wish list and stuff. A lot of US, some European countries, and a lot of like Latin American regions that are just really excited about the game. Demo. That's tough. I feel very bad if I tried to confirm anything in regards to a demo right now. I'd say definitely sometime this year. I won't go any further than that right now, just because. Yeah. Yeah, so I do want to keep the packs, like, obviously a lot of this is like kind of subject to change 100%. Like I could say something right now and it completely change in the future. But I like the cadence of like between 5 and 6 characters a year. I think that's like a good number because it means like every 2 months or so something new is coming out for the game. Like whether that cadence is actually sustainable or not is like to be seen. But I think that would be like the perfect cadence. But it's like at least 4. I think most modern fighting games now are like around 4 characters a year, and then some are like at the 5 or 6 mark, right? So yeah, it just depends on the cadence we get to. But I like the number 6. I think 6 is like a really good number, but it's also going to be, I'd be lying if I said this, it's not going to be difficult to maintain that pace, right? So it just depends on like the sales and everything like that that kind of contribute to, how much effort and time we can put into it. Without mentioning any specific IPs, I will say that I've seen some lots of interesting requests, and people would be surprised at some of the conversations we're having behind closed doors in regards to some of these things that are very more possible than people think. So I think it's always good to like people, yeah, I think like guys are watching the podcast and everything, like free to add us and say like, oh, I want this character, like just let us know what you're thinking and like what characters you think make the most kind of sense to cross over in this kind of way, because I think we do want it to be a celebration of manga, right? That's kind of the kind of goal of the game too. So yeah, I did see a lot of people that were requesting like not to have active tag. I think active tag is a really cool mechanic if done well, and it's hard to do it well. That is the kind of thing, because it can be very polarizing and kind of difficult to play around, especially in some of the ways it's been implemented in some games that are active right now, where active tag can just be like you're playing a different game and it just feels like not fun to deal with. So while we do plan on having it, we're trying to make sure that it's not like broken, basically, in a way that's like super unfun to play against. I won't go into details right now about what the plans are in regards to like dealing with it, but that's kind of our approach internally at this point.
And active tag is
okay. So there's like 2 versions of it, two things that are commonly called active tag. The first is, I think the most famous example is like Marvel's Capcom Infinite, where basically at any point in the combo or whatever, or just at any point you press the tag button and the other character runs in with like a hitbox, meaning like they run in and then they hit the opponent and there's like a hit and then they can do combo stuff afterwards, right? The other version, which is actually called assist tag, but is most popularly known as active tag, which is, in my opinion, the version that people are very polarized about. Is basically you can call an assist. The assist is doing an action, and then while they're doing that action, you press the tag button, and then control switches to where you're now controlling that assist character. And you can do some very, very unfun things to your opponent with that active. What a big example is, if I'm playing something called the neutral game, is basically the concept of like when neither player is at a significant advantage. Like we're just trying to space each other out, like in a fight. Like when you think of in a fight, you're trying to space each other out and figure out the spacing of things. So basically, if I call an assist and then I jump in the air, so my assist is on the ground, I'm in the air. My opponent's like, okay, I need to react to one of these two things. Like I either need to address the jump or I need to address the assist. Generally, it's best to address the character that the other player is actually controlling. But because of active tag, I'm literally like guys have heard the Schrodinger's cat thing. I'm literally in both places at the same time. Because as soon as I see you jump to try and meet me in the air, I just switch to the character on the ground. The air character goes away, and then I get to punish you for jumping. And fight, like I see you go for the ground, like I'm still in the air. I get to, like it's a nightmare situation. So those are the kind of things where people are like, I don't like active tag, like it's just unfun to play against. So we are trying to mitigate against it, but it's difficult. It's difficult. So I think like the arena thing is like significantly harder to do in a way that I think would be fulfilling to us internally. So that's like the Netcode Warriors thing. We've been working on Netcode Warriors since 2020. It's 2026 now, right? Like that's because like nobody's really done a competitive arena fighter. Most of the arena fighters are very casual fighting games. They're not really designed to be played at a super deep level. They're designed to just like you pick up and play with your friends, you put it down, that's it, right? And we're trying to do something different with Netcode Warriors, but it's a lot of like R&D, research and development. And we just felt like, with this IP or whatever, it's better to come out sooner rather than later. That's one thing. And another thing is I'm very passionate about basically every subgenre of fighting games to some degree. And so I just felt like, especially with the IP thing, like the crossing over of the different Saturday AM manga brands, I felt like a tag fighter was like the most interesting thing we could do, because you have to think of like Sano teaming up with Cass and Dante teaming up with Stud, and yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I don't really have any questions. I do want to thank you, like White, for your time. I mean, obviously, all of the dedication you put into this and all the attention to detail, getting our art styles. I can't wait to see all the new characters that we've been talking about internally. Like I'm really excited to see exactly where this is going. So thank you again for not only just contacting White all those years ago, but also just being here to answer our questions. I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry if I've yawned through this. I've been up since 3 a.m. yesterday, so I'm.
Hey man, I know exactly what that life is like, bro. Don't worry about it. I did want to shout out to first my team. Like I'm just representing the team or whatever, but the other studio heads, Abir, Jacob, Nandi, all those guys, and then obviously the actual people that they're doing the programming, the animation, the design work, the character designs and the modeling and everything. So Ray and Alan, but we haven't had a bunch of new people join recently, and Noisy. Like there's so many people. Obviously, I can't go through the entire list or whatever, but I just want to thank everybody on my team that's really been putting a lot of hard work into the project since we started. And then also the music. We didn't really get a chance to talk about the music that much, but the song in the trailer was done by two producers called Cloudy, and Shaddix, and they did the instrumentals. And then the vocals were done by a rapper named Mega G from Japan. And he had his friend, goes by Greedy. They collaborated on the vocals together. I know we're kind of running out of time, but I just want to kind of have a quick conversation about that, because the reception on the music specifically has been so positive. One of the big inspirations for the music, for the trailer specifically, was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, right? Because that was kind of like the intersection, like one of the first intersections culturally of like music between Japan and the US in the gaming space, where it's like, obviously it's a Japanese made game, but with like a hip hop kind of lean. They hired like some rapper, I can't remember the dude's name right now, it's like famous in the fighting game community, to do like the soundtrack for Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Some of those songs I still listen to regularly, whatever. And so yeah, that was kind of an inspiration for the track, which we're calling Ignite. So if you hear in the trailer, it says Moyase. Moyase means ignite in Japanese. And I think it just like has like that perfect feeling of like, when somebody's about to get ready for a fight, they like they like clap their fists like this, and they like there's like a spark there, like that ignites, right? So that was kind of the theming for the music. Whether we decide to go with like more of that exact music for the rest of the soundtrack, or we do something kind of different, is like still to be seen. But we're definitely receptive of the positive reception we got for the music from the trailer. So we're definitely keeping a close eye on people's kind of things from that. Yeah, so like this video game soundtrack can be kind of pretty extensive, especially for fighting games. You can have like different kinds of menu music, like character select screen would usually have its own song, and like the main menu would have its own song. Maybe there's a couple like things exclusive to story mode, and then some games do stage themes where the stage you're fighting on has a theme, and some games do character themes where a character have a theme, and then it randomly picks one of the two characters' themes to play regardless of the environment. And then some games do both, where there'll be a stage theme and a character theme. So we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do, kind of leaning towards like doing like a combination where there are some character themes, some stage themes or whatever, but we're still trying to figure that out. So rollback netcode basically is a predictive algorithm, basically predicts the inputs you're going to do. And then if the prediction is incorrect, it rolls back. That's why it's called rollback. And then resimulates what actually is supposed to happen. But it does this literally in between the frames. So it's basically indiscernible to like the player. And yeah, basically if you don't have rollback netcode, your game's basically dead on. And especially in the modern day, post-pandemic, like in the pandemic, basically rollback became like a requirement. Like if you didn't have it, your games were, So funny enough, Nen Impact initially, when they announced it, they were like, they weren't really talking about it. And then they said they were going to delay it for a year to like add rollback into it. But then it came out and the rollback wasn't that great. So, which is kind of a reason like why it's not really played that much to this day, unfortunately. Which sucks because it does, have had some interesting gameplay ideas and things like that. But that's like a good example of like if your netcode is not that good, it doesn't really matter how good your game looks, how good it plays. People. I'm pretty sure. I haven't read absolutely everything, so like I haven't read Yellow Stringer, I think it's called, and Oblivion Rouge. I think I still have not read, but basically everything else I've read, like everything else. So I caught up on Apple Black, caught up on Hammer. I'm excited for Clock Striker Volume 3. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I know it's coming out soon. Basically everything else I've read.
I don't have anything to add. I'll just say go to the store. The Saturday AM shop is open for business. You can get exclusive merch from Saturday AM that will support the creators directly. So definitely check us out there. There's links to it on our website. I believe the URL is shop saturday-am.com, I believe.
Just to piggyback off of what they were saying, definitely go to Steam and, put this game on your wish list. There's been an incredible amount of support already. I can't wait to see, it in front of me so that way I can play my own character. I've always dreamt of doing it. So I'm very excited, and I hope you guys are too. And if you want to support us, please go to the shop. Keep an eye out for the next issues that are going to be coming out as well. There's Saturday PM coming out soon. Saturday AM is going to be coming back. So many awesome things that are going to be in 2026. So, definitely keep an eye out and, subscribe to our channel so that way you don't miss a beat. You can also join the Saturday AM team, or I guess the YouTube channel. Like we have a membership. So definitely check that out if you are interested in supporting us directly as well.
So Jesse, you got any? You want to drop any? Plugs for you and your team, Sun Studios, final words, where everybody can find out more about you guys.
For us, for the studio, feel free to follow us. I think everywhere, absolutely everywhere, but most places at Sun Studios Games, you should be able to find us. I think on Boost Guy, it's going to be like at sunstudios-dev.com. but everywhere else it should be just Stunt Studios Games. In regards to keeping up with us as a studio, Twitter is probably gonna be like one of your best places, or our YouTube channel if there's like updates, trailers, anything like that. But yeah, it's gonna be a very exciting year for us as a studio because outside of this, we're obviously working on our other fighting game. We have another project as well. It's like a VR title that's like also in like a kind of state of development too. So yeah, Nirvana, yeah. So lots of interesting things happening from some studios this year and beyond. Where I think this kind of reception that we got for this trailer maybe really showed us like, people really mess with like what we're trying to do. So yeah, just stay tuned. It's gonna be a wild ride.
Holy Ghost push! Holy Ghost push! Holy Ghost push! Holy Ghost push! Holy Ghost push!